All right. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Laughter for All podcast with Comedian Nazareth. My guest today is, I don't know what to tell you about him. He is the pillar of apologetics in the kingdom here on earth. Josh has delivered approximately over 27,000 talks to over 25 to 30 million people in 126 countries who all have COVID right now. All these 126 countries have COVID.
That's what they get for listening to me.
All right, and he has, let's see, I'm gonna hang up the phone and talk to you on, you can hear me right now, right?
I just lost you.
No, you can hear me now? I can hear you. No? Oh, you were listening. You can't hear me. Okay, let's see. Let's see. This is good. Okay. Hello. And okay, so we're gonna do this. Okay, can you
Now
hear
we're
me?
back.
Yes, now you can hear me. All right, perfect. So let me continue. 126 countries, he authored over 150 books, including More Than a Carpenter. He also authored Evidence That Demands a Verdict, which is right here, one of the best books you can get on Christianity. If you're a Christian, you need to study this. You need to have this as your reference, because this book will, this is evidence. This is not like, oh, maybe this is what I believe. No, this is the evidence. Took a lot of research. We're going to talk about this book, but he is one of the 20.
If you want, I could introduce myself.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Josh McDowell himself, one of the greatest apologists of our time and evangelist. Welcome to the show, Mr. McDowell.
Hey, this is like dying and going to heaven being with you, Nazareth.
Oh, thank you so much.
You're glad they didn't name you Bethlehem.
That's my sister. No, my sister is Buffalo. But thank you. You're in Texas right now, right?
No.
You're in Southern California?
I'm in Dana Point, California, where I live.
Well, I was there 2 days ago in San Clemente, but you're right. You and Dottie lived in Texas and then came back because the grandkids are here in Southern California.
We've been here about 12, 14 years.
Now, one question. I know you traveled, you did 27,000 shows, so that means you've been around the globe so many times. How is Dottie, your wife of almost 50 years, how did she handle that?
Well, I wish she were here, because she would tell you she handled it very well. We've gone through divorce proceedings 4 times. I think the key, people that have problems when they travel will have worse problems if they don't travel. I really do. Our marriage is based on an excellent relationship. I'm so humbled to be married to Dottie. She has changed my life. And the thing is with Dottie, she believes in me more than I believe in myself. And she promotes me far more than I promote myself. And she thinks I'm the greatest speaker in the world. And I tell her she has the spiritual gift of the grasp of the obvious. That's a great spiritual gift to have. But she, up until we had 3 children, she traveled with me almost all the time. And now with the kids, 4 kids, and they're all grown up, she doesn't travel as much because we got 10 grandkids and 7 of them live around us.
Oh, that's a blessing.
But when I'm home, I'm home. And we just never have quit working on our relationship and our marriage. And
so what do you work on it at this, after 48 years? What kind of things you work on differently than you did earlier?
Communicating. One of my problems is I'm the big picture guy. Don't bore me with details. Just give me the big picture and I'll fill in the details. As a result, Dottie is a type of person that needs details. An example, I'd come home from a trip and I'll say, some friends of ours, so-and-so had a baby. Boy or girl, I don't know. What'd they name it? I don't know. How much did it weigh? I don't know. It was a human baby. That's all I needed to know. So now when I come home, so-and-so had a baby. What'd they name it? Jennifer. How much did it weigh? 42 pounds. No, not that much. But when was she born? I get all the details now. And I found out that the shortcoming in our communication was me, because I wasn't giving details. And I've learned to do that over the years. And Dottie won't let me get by with it if I don't. And I think that's true of a lot of men. They don't give details. Yeah.
Have you been on the road after 1,000 shows and said, I'm tired of this. I'm really tired. I'm done. And have you ever had that feeling before?
Nope.
No.
Never. Last year I traveled 330 days. The year before 310. Yeah. Wow. And Dottie went with me a number of times. This year, I thought 5 months ago, I'm going to stay home. I'm going to pray for something like the virus to come along and quarantine me. And so I've gone out a number of times being quarantined and done 2 one-week family conferences and others, but really being careful, because I'd rather be 6 feet apart than 6 feet under.
That's right. Now, you were born in Michigan.
I wanted to be close to my mother.
Yeah. Born in Michigan. Your upbringing was not Christian. You were an atheist, and you actually were intelligent enough to want to fight Christianity and prove it wrong.
I wasn't an atheist. I wasn't that dumb. I was ornery agnostic. You have a regular agnostic, and you have an ornery one. I was an ornery agnostic.
What's the difference?
Well, an ordinary agnostic says, I don't know. Maybe you know. Let's talk about it. An ornery agnostic says, I don't know. You don't know. So shut up.
And when did that change for you?
Probably about 35 years ago, 40 years ago.
Was it evangelist? Was it someone that preached to you, or did you actually by yourself try?
I met these students at Kellogg College in Battle Creek. This was actually 50 some years ago. And they were so different. Most people are different because they're weird. These people are different because they seem to have a genuine love for each other, and they seem to love people outside their group the same way. So I went and made friends with them, and I said, what changed your lives? Why are you so different? The other students, the leaders, the professors. And this young lady, she was cute. I used to think all Christians were ugly. But she looked back at me with a little smile and just said 2 words I never thought I would ever hear about Solution University. She just looked back at me with a little smile, which was irritating, and said, Jesus Christ. And I said, oh, for God's sakes, don't give me that crap. And I lit into him verbally. She didn't back off. She said, and I said, I'm sick and tired of the church, the Bible, God, Christianity, and Christians. She said, we never said any of that. We said the person of Jesus Christ. So I apologized to him. But a part of my apology, I added a disclaimer. I said, I want you to know something. I don't want anything to do with Christians, Christianity, the Bible, or Jesus Christ. And that's when they challenged me to intellectually, now get that, to use my mind. I used to think Christians had 2 brains. One was lost and the other was out looking for it. I figured if a Christian had a brain, it'd die in isolation or loneliness. And so I accepted their challenge, left college for a while, traveled throughout the United States, England, Germany, France, Switzerland, and the Middle East. I made a lot of money my first 2 years in university.
Doing what? Doing what?
I started a painting. Nobody had a job. You couldn't get a job anywhere. My father always said, if you can't find one, create one. So I created a Superior Painting Company, hired college students at about $8 an hour back then, and I got paid $15 to $20 an hour for each one of them, and painted houses and these cigarette commercials and tobacco painted on the ends of barns they used to. Well, I used to do that.
Oh.
And boy, there's good money in painting the ends of barns. And so I made quite a bit of money. And as I traveled, I realized I was ignorant. And I ended up December 19, 1959 at 8:30 at night, trusted Christ as my Savior and Lord. Didn't understand it all. But intellectually, I knew it was true. Two things. I knew the Bible was historically accurate and reliable, and I truly believed Jesus must be the Messiah, the Son of God. And I came to Christ, and I wrote the book, Evidence That Demands a Verdict, which took 13 years, documenting why I believe it's true. And now I got 151 books built on top of that one book. Most people think I came to Christ through the intellectual route. I didn't. I came through it, the emotional, relational route. You say, what do you mean? People would say to me, because they knew my background, they'd say, you know, there's a God in heaven. There's a Father in heaven who loves you. Well, they thought that brought me joy. It didn't. That brought pain. I grew up believing fathers hurt you. My dad hurt me. And so my greatest barrier was seeing God as a loving father. I just couldn't. And it brought up a lot of animosity and resentment and everything. And finally, I started to see him as a heavenly father, and I came to Christ. So it was kind of a relationally emotional rejection of Christianity, not intellectual.
Now, how long after that did you write More Than a Carpenter?
Oh, about 8 years after that. I was in Chicago, and so many people would ask me questions, professors, businessmen, students. Well, how can you believe in Jesus? How can you believe in the Bible? So I was in Chicago at Larry Shepard's place, a single guy, and Dottie was with me, and I said, I'm going back to Larry's condo, and I'm not going to bed, not leaving until I write a book. So I sat down at 3 tables in half, kind of a U shape, with a large TV on in front of me, and 42 hours later, I finished the book. And never
42 hours?
Yeah, I never read the manuscript, sent it off to Tyndale, and I was doing a conference at Point Loma College, a big high school, national high school conference for the Nazarene Church. And I got the thing when I left to go to the conference, I got the manuscript in the mail, and I couldn't open it because I knew they were going to reject it because they had Virginia Hearn was the editor, the toughest editor in America, and she was the editor of his magazine for InterVarsity. But she was tough. She was like nails. And so I knew it was going to be rejected. So all weekend, I was so scared. I got home, finally said, this is ridiculous. And so I prayed and prayed, and I opened it up. And across the top of the first page, Virginia Hearn wrote, this is one of the best manuscripts we ever received. And I started crying. I literally started crying for the unbelief that I had and lack of faith that God could use me as a writer. And so that started my writing career. And that was during the process of doing Evidence That Demands a Verdict.
You know,
and I just wrote it. And I just wrote the book that if you and I were sitting here in this Mexican restaurant where I am, and you'd say, let's have a tortoise together, what I would share with you in about 45 minutes to an hour is called More Than a Carpenter book. If you ask me, why do you believe?
You know, it's amazing because this book, 2 things. Number one, 11 years ago, God put it in my heart to start a ministry called Voice of Refugees, me and an Iraqi lady, because there's a flood of refugees coming to Southern California, Anaheim mostly. So we started the ministry, and God just blessed it to the point today, like every week we feed over 1,000 people. You know, we put 40 pounds of food, and
oh, that's brilliant. That makes my day.
I remember from the day one we started, every time a family comes in, like we know about a family coming from Iraq or Syria or Afghanistan, we send one of our drivers to pick them up from the airport, and we take them to their apartment, and then we give them free furniture. With the free furniture is More Than a Carpenter book in Arabic and the Jesus film. Every family that comes in. A month ago, we had this, you know, we've been delivering 40 pounds of food. I did that yesterday as well. And we put your book in Arabic in that. So until this
that
day,
warms my heart, buddy.
and I was told, and this is true, during the Iraqi war, when the American military got into Iraq, some of the stuff the Christian military were using your book to spread around in Arabic more than the Carpenter. So
do you remember in Iraq when they let a whole bunch of prisoners out, about 200? They released them, and somebody called me right away and said, "Zoom in." They were, half of them were holding up a book and waving it, and it was more than a Carpenter.
That's
and
amazing.
Somebody called me and I zoomed in and I said, "Oh my God, look at that!"
And it took you 45
Who
minutes.
bought that book? Who distributed that book in the prisons? And I'm hoping someday when I share this story, somebody will know who it is and let me know, because I'd like to thank them and take them out to dinner.
And get your royalties in denaries.
Well, I don't get any royalties anyway.
Oh, but you
They're
know,
all given away.
You know, being Middle Eastern myself, I know your love for the Middle East, because I remember I went to there was a Middle Eastern festival, and we rented a booth for Voice of Refugees to witness to people, and guess who was in the booth next there? Mr. Josh McDowell, and those are Iraqi people coming. They know who you are, and they're asking you for your signature.
The lines were 40 and 50 people long.
Yes.
And you know what I did?
What?
Every night, I would sign 50 books Muhammad and 50 books Ahmed. Why? At least 50 Muslims would come up, and I'll say, "What's your name?" "Muhammad." And I said, "Oh, here." "Well, would you sign it?" "Oh, it's signed." And they thought I was so brilliant. "Oh, what's your name?" "Ahmed." "Oh, here, take from this pile and give it to them." And so every night I'd go to this cafe and sign books for about 2 hours. Ahmed and Muhammad.
No,
and somebody said, "Why would you do that?" And so I sat there and I yelled out, "Muhammad!" And about 40 people stopped, turned around, and looked. And then the person said to me, "I see why you sign a Muhammad."
Now, have you been to the Middle East? Have you spoken in like Iraq or Syria or any Egypt?
Everywhere.
Everywhere.
Yep.
Have you ever been in, challenged or troubled or attacked or any of that?
I've had a lot of threats in my life, but I've yet to be attacked. I was just about killed in Argentina.
How?
But they stopped him before they dropped a cement block on me from 3 stories up.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. You'd really had to have a hard head to live through that.
Oh.
No, but most people, if you're warm and friendly, if they don't like you, they'll be polite. I've always prayed, still hasn't happened, that wherever I live, I would like a Muslim to be my neighbor on the right and a black brother to be a neighbor on the left. Somebody says, "Why?" Because I'd love to walk out on my porch or deck and lean over and chat with a black fellow. Get to know them, see how they think and everything. And the same way with a Muslim, and see them come to Christ. But 2 black young men just moved into our neighborhood, 3-4 houses down. I said to them, "Oh, bummer, why couldn't you have rented the house next to me? It's available."
Oh, that's funny. That's funny. No,
so we're going to have them, we have COVID-19 meals. We have them in our garage.
Oh.
We separate everybody, and then I sit out in the sun and bake. So I'm at least 6 feet away or more.
That's funny.
So if you come down, I'll sit in the garage and put you out in the sun.
Oh, I don't mind it. I was born, I lived in Kuwait most of my life. In my young life. So that's awesome. Now, you were the first who started the big apologetics and, going around the world and really defending the faith. Then came Ravi Zacharias too, and he had a different kind of direction, but it was the same. Like you were the pillar, and then Ravi. Who do you think now is the new ones that coming up, that carrying the torch? Who are you handing the torch to?
Well, I think my son Sean is one of the tops in the world. If you haven't heard Sean McDowell speak, SEAN, you need to.
I heard him, yeah.
The kid is brilliant. He's knowledgeable and he can communicate. to get all three of those in one person, I had to have my wife involved to do that. But Frank Turek, there's a lot of younger guys coming along. The body of Christ is in good shape. I wasn't the first one. I appreciate you saying that, but as far as back I can remember, there's a fellow professor at Fuller Seminary called Wilbur Smith. And he wrote a book called Now That I Believe, or something like that. And it was a lot smaller book, similar to Evidence That Demands a Verdict. And he could communicate. He was very down to earth. And I think he laid the foundation for me to come along. And then I remember I was up in the Northeast and I said to my wife, there's this Indian guy. Everywhere I go up here, he shows up. And I said, he's brilliant. She said, how do you know? Because I said, to me, the answer is not the most brilliant thing. It's asking the right questions. And I said, he's asking the right questions. And you know who it was? Ravi Zacharias. Yeah. And he was just a brash kid. He would interrupt me talking to somebody else to ask a question, which I enjoyed very much. Yeah.
Yeah, man.
And then I think there was Norm Geisler.
Yeah.
I think we all are indebted to Norm Geisler. He set the stage with a lot of debates and everything, and some of his books. Yeah. And then I came along right after those two.
Now, my question, and which is now so needed today, in today's language, what is truth, Josh? You're the one who wrote the evidence and the demand a verdict, the new evidence. You talk about truth. What is truth?
Truth is that which has fidelity to the original. You say, what? When I first read that, I think it was in the Collegiate Dictionary by Webster or someone, and I thought, I'm in trouble when I needed a definition for the definition. Truth is that which has fidelity to the original. Fidelity means the same as, equal to. And so, what's the original? Let's say I have a bottle of water, and I say I have a liter of water. And Nazareth, you say, no, you don't. I said, I do too. You said, you do not. Now, is my statement correct and yours false? Or is your statement correct and mine false? Now, truth is that which has fidelity, or the same as, equal to the original, or reality. So you and I would take our wives and we go to Paris, France, to the far out suburb where there's an International Bureau of Weights and Measures, all the original metric measurements. So we would take the original metric measurement for a liter, and we would compare it with my container of water. If it was fidelity, if it was the same as, equal to that, then my statement was true because there was fidelity to the original and yours was false. But knowing you probably drank a little bit of that, and therefore there'd be a little less liquid in my bottle of water. So your statement would be correct. Why? Because my statement did not coincide with what is, with reality or the original. And your statement was true then, because your statement coincided with the original. That's what truth is. And so when it comes to truth, you have to ask yourself, where does the evidence point? What is the original? Does the statement meet? Like if I say, it's snowing outside, is that statement true or false? If you went outside and there was a white substance to find the snow falling from the sky, then my statement was true. But if you went outside and it was about 82 degrees out and no white substance found, my statement was false. Why? It did not coincide with what is, or reality. Yeah.
So what in today's day, what is, like you're an evangelist as well. You're not only an apologist, you've been an evangelist, you led so many people to Christ.
I'm also a husband, a father, an uncle, grandfather, and many things.
And my friend, and I've been to Breckenridge.
And that's right, and I'm your friend.
I stayed in your cabin.
Gets me into all the bars.
I went into your boat, and I went on, and also I did several events, so I love working with you. But the question is right now, as an evangelist, It's
I'd have
huge.
you
From
more.
like,
I'd have you more often, but you're so expensive. Woo!
oh, I'm free for you. You know that.
And
Anytime.
then
I
I've
would
done
love to.
things you haven't done. The other day, I turned my car into a tree.
A tree? Okay, Josh. Now let's say you want to share Jesus today with the Generation Z. And I know on your website on josh.org, there's all these researches that your team did that talks about the difference in the Generation Z and the millennial and stuff. If you witnessing today to a generation Gen Z person, how would you approach that?
Very simple. I would approach it the same way I do with every type of person in the world, whether a Muslim, a Hindu, a millennial, Gen Z, or whatever. I would start with my personal story or testimony. I would first ask them, as I do all over the world, tell me about your spiritual journey. Everybody likes to tell about their journey. And I listen to them without answering back. And then almost always they'll say to me, well, what's your journey? And then I'm off and running. Or I'll say, well, could I have some time to share with you what my journey has been? Nobody has ever said no. Your strongest witness is your personal testimony. It really is. Doesn't matter what country, what culture, or what the person is you're talking to. From an atheist to agnostic to a Hindu to a Buddhist to a Taoist, whatever. Your most positive witness is your personal testimony.
Do you think churches right now are weaker than before 10 years ago? Are they stronger? Is the gospel reaching more now than or less? What is your take on that?
On the church?
On the church, the state of the church.
I think it's stronger. I think it's quite a bit stronger. And many churches have found out how to use social media, the internet, the web, to communicate. I go to a church just almost around the corner from where I live. It used to be a Calvary Chapel, and then it went independent. And it's called Harbor Point Church. And I just love the church. The pastors are right on, and they're speaking, they're teaching and all. They're creative. I mean, every year with a middle school, they provide backpacks for every kid. And it's amazing how many of those kids end up coming to church, hearing the gospel and all. And that's kind of thrilling. So I think the church is stronger. For example, in our ministry, every 60 seconds, not on the internet, totally apart from the internet, 150 people every 60 seconds downloads our resources. Yeah, that's multi-millions a year. And that's not even the internet. It's millions more by the internet. We have 4 pieces of technology we use. And right now, we have 647,000 pieces in 139 countries. And this has never happened with anyone before, I don't think. Because we got technology. I mean, one little piece of technology, on it has 14 of my books in 2 Muslim languages, has most of my material on sexuality in 2 Muslim languages, has the Bible, the Jesus film, and the Undaunted movie of my life in 2 Muslim languages, and most of my material on sexuality. And flying from Cairo to London, my chief executive officer had charged it up, turned it on, and just dropped it in to the pouch in the back of the seat in front of him. In one airplane flight from Cairo to London, in less than 4 hours, in that plane, 75 passengers linked on to our technology and downloaded 1,127 resources in one flight. Inside
the plane, they were able to download, link to it.
Yep. It's not Wi-Fi, and it's not a radio signal. I just don't understand it all, but I know how it works in getting the job done. And everyone on the plane, it'll pop up in their phone, my Wi-Fi free. Now, in the United States, that's no big deal. You get outside of the United States, in every country, it's a big deal.
Yeah.
And thousands do it. we got another piece that we just got. It's a little larger, about this big, and contains more material. But in the Middle East and everything, a lot of people have walls around their house and everything in many countries, and they're quite a ways apart, the houses. You can take this, put it out on your wall, turn it on, and for about a half mile, everybody will pick it up in their houses and everything, my Wi-Fi free. And it's just amazing how many connect on it and download. And what is nice, they can't trace it to us, but we can track every one of them the moment they link onto it.
So you mean they can get free Wi-Fi for themselves, and then based on that, they can see all the resources that they can download?
Oh, it's incredible.
And where can we get it?
What?
Where can people buy this and use them?
Well, we had it designed in China.
Oh, so
we're gonna. I hope within a year and a half, I can have a conference in Dallas and invite all the mission groups, large churches, everything to come and present our technology and where they can buy it and use it. The problem is most churches won't be willing to put in the money for it. Why? The key is not the technology. The key is having the right material and programming it right. And that's what costs money, is programming it right. But, I mean, it's probably the cheapest ever in history for evangelizing someone. And you're doing it in their method of communication. Their smartphone, their iPad, their laptop. We've had, with more in the Carpenter book, there's about 200 million copies in circulation. 200 million. It's probably the #1 read book in history apart from the Bible.
Yes,
and
it is.
The majority of it is digital. It's digital. People downloading it. And the thing is, when people download, an average of 8 people read it because they forward it to others, to others, to others, to others. And we put a copyright on there and said, do not distribute, so people would do it.
That's fun. That's fun. Speaking of your books, this book, The New Evidence of
That's obsolete. That book is obsolete.
Really?
I called my son. Yes, I called my son. And I said, Sean, I feel guilty. I'm sitting here in my office with incredible evidence that nobody knows about on the Bible and Jesus, the resurrection. So I said, why don't you join with me and let's do a complete, total revision of the New Evidence Demands a Verdict. It's now called, back to its original name, Evidence That Demands a Verdict. It's a total, complete revision. It's probably 70% new because there's so much new evidence. I explain it this way. There's a tsunami of new evidence, and now everyone can have access to it through Evidence That Demands a Verdict.
Now, how long it took you? How long it took you to write the original one, and how many people did you were helping you researching and doing it? How long did it take you?
Well, the original took 13 years. One summer I had 11 research students from universities that got credit for it, spent June, July, and the first half of August. And I'd point out research I need in this area, go here, do this. And so every day, 10, 11 people were out there 6 days a week gathering the information. And I would synthesize it, evaluate it, eliminate or reuse it, whatever. And that's why there's over 2,000 documentations, I think, in Evidence That Demands a Verdict.
That's amazing. I know you're scheduled to be at our church, Crossroad Church here in Corona. I live in Corona. And
yeah, I am.
Yes, and I don't know if there's still, what do you think of how churches are reacting to the COVID, and what's your thought on that as a wise person?
Well, a lot of churches are really doing well with it. John MacArthur just opened up his church, but with incredible safety factors, really incredible. And same way with our church. And they started something during the COVID thing on Saturday night. outdoors. And Dottie and I just love it. We go in my little, I'm looking at it right now, my little Mini Cooper convertible. I'll show it to you. See that?
Oh, I love it.
Oh, shove it to the floor and it loves to go. And so we go there, we put the top down, we take a burrito from the Mexican restaurant here and everything, and we bring a chicken soup or something like that Dottie makes, and we have dinner there at church. It's incredible what they do. And a lot of people show up for it. Yeah, I think, the church is a little slow to act usually, but they always act. And that's probably good. If the church was fast to acclimatize to something, we'd probably get in a lot of error and make a lot of mistakes. The church is like a big barge that moves slowly, but when it moves, it takes a lot with it. So I'm thankful, but there's problems with the church because we have people in it.
That's true. That's true. That's a problem. So, I'm an evangelist. I'm a comedian, but I use comedy as a way to.
You do it well too.
Well, thank you so much. You're the best. And what do you think? I know you answered the question with you share your testimony, but then what do you deal with the young crowd that don't believe in any of that? I don't believe this. I don't believe that. How? And how do you?
Well, when they're like that, you have to bring yourself down about the 5th grade level. And speak slowly with one-syllable words so they can understand. Well, if you know me, I launch into apologetics. And one of the first things I ask them, do you believe there's such a thing as truth? Yes. How do you define it? And most people cannot define truth. Maybe 1 out of 30 will have any intelligent answer to that. And then I'll say to them, okay, that's truth to you. What criteria will you accept? What type of evidence, whatever, that will show that it's true? And then I almost always can use their evidence, their formula, and lead them to Christ with it. Whether it's showing Jesus the Messiah, the Son of God, whatever. But I always make sure I get back to the gospel. As Christ died on the cross for his sins, was buried, raised again the 3rd day. And he wants to enter our life through the power of the Holy Spirit. As my wife says, because Christ was raised from the dead, he lives. And because he lives, he has an infinite capacity to enter a person's life and change them from the inside out. And I think he used what a good salesman uses. I always try to present something they really want. Then I show them why they can't have it, why they don't have it. Then I show them how they can have it, and then make it personal. And that's 4 points of a good salesperson. It's also 4 points of a good witness for Christ.
Can you repeat those 4 again?
Yeah. Number 1, promise them something desirable. God loves you and has a wonderful plan for your life. Second, show them why they can't experience it. Because man is sinful and separated from God, and therefore cannot experience his love and plan for their life. Then third, show them how they can experience it. Jesus Christ is the only way, And then fourth, make it personal. You need to personally trust Christ as your Savior and Lord. Those 4 points. Makes you a good evangelist or makes you a good salesman.
That's wonderful. Are you still with Campus Crusade? I know you were very instrumental. No.
I'm with Crew.
Crew. Steve Douglas. He's my friend on LinkedIn.
You know why so many dumb, idiotic people criticize Crusade so much? Totally ignorant. When we changed our name from Campus Crusade for Christ to Crew, there were 2 key factors there. One, we had to do it. I couldn't even put on my website that I'm a staff member with Campus Crusade for Christ because the word crusade has totally changed from what it meant in the 50s. And it would turn Muslims off. and I couldn't witness them. And 80% of my work is with Muslims.
Right.
And so it became an incredible barrier that a lot of people didn't have the brains to understand that. Second, they would say, oh, Campus Crusaders, oh, man, pastors, businessmen. And if any of them listening right now, you ought to apologize. They would say, oh, Campus Crusaders, they've jeopardized the cause of Christ. They've compromised. They've taken Jesus out of the ministry and everything. How dumb can you be? The main reason why we didn't have Christ in it, for a year and a half, we tested every combination of words for a name of a ministry that was not used somewhere in the world. And even with a computer, we couldn't do it. And all we needed to do was have a name that some little ministry in Iowa, China, or Korea, whatever, has the same name, they could sue you.
Right.
And they could take hundreds of thousands of dollars and have you stop after all the money you spent. So we did everything we could to come up with a name with Christ in it. We couldn't. And we didn't dare to jump in to use a name that was out there. Second, I like the word crew, which comes from crusade. I like the word crew. And this is what a lot of people don't realize. I cannot believe businessmen don't even realize this. Whenever you come up with a name or you rename something, you don't want it to be specific. You want it to be not obnoxious.
General,
Kind of general with no meaning. Why? If you really want to do good at renaming, you want to take an innocuous name and then add meaning to it. So we took crew. At the time, it meant nothing except for a crew cut or crew rowing a crew boat. And of course, everybody joked about that. But little by little, we added the name that crew stands for a global organization of creating followers of Christ that every person in the world would know a follower of Christ. And that's what we're becoming known for. We have added value to the name. And I like that. And a lot of people just didn't have the brains to see it.
It's funny because last year they have something, Steve Douglas and crew had something that they want to reach, 5 people, each person with this in May, that they'll reach 5 people for Christ. So we all gathered at LAX Hyatt Regency, and Steve Douglas was there, and different people from different large ministries, from the Assembly of God, the Southern Baptist, and my ministry, Laughter for All, because we're evangelistic ministry. I was invited too, so we were in small room of 30 people that were doing this huge worldwide outreach, which they did in May. But crew was part of it. But have you had anything funny happen to you in those 27,200 shows? Anything you remember?
Yeah. I was at Arrowhead Springs, which at that time was International Headquarters Campus Crusade. And down the hill was this large dormitory with a very large meeting room. And I was speaking there, and it was on the intercom all through the hotel, Bill Bright's room, everything, office. And I was on risers, but nobody locked the risers down.
Ouch.
And I did this comic routine about your first date. And I was known for it for years. It was so funny to do. And I would always have 2 chairs. And then how a girl would come and sit down, and I sit, and how I would try to hold her hand, or what it took to get my arm around her or anything like that. But the problem is, one chair was on one set of risers and the other chair was on the other set of risers. So I'm standing there, and I said, I finally got up and I threw my arm. And as I did that, the riser split and I went head first down between them. And nobody knew. People were running down from headquarters. What happened? What happened? What happened? Because everybody started screaming and everything. And my feet were literally sticking up in the air and my head straight on the floor. And that was one of the better things. Probably some of the most embarrassing is when you get up with your pants unzipped.
Ouch. That's some.
I used to practice. What do? You don't make a big deal out of it. Everybody knows how you zip up your pants.
Right.
And so I was in Hawaii, and this kid way in the back, I'm about 15 minutes into a talk with parents, and I thought, boy, is this a dead audience? Nobody was laughing or anything. And this kid comes up to the platform, reaches up with a little note. And I picked it up and I looked at it and said, oh no. So I just said, your pants are unzipped. And the whole crowd went, ah. Nobody knew what to say to you.
That's
so,
what the pulpit are for.
Off stage or anything. So I just turned around. Well, the zipper got caught. And I couldn't get it up. I was sitting there going like this. And the place is just coming undone. And I said to him, relax, folks. It's all part of the act.
Oh, good.
Well, that night, I got back to my hotel, and there was a very well-known, wealthy businessman. This was in, I think, Korea, South Korea. And it was an American businessman standing there. And he said, hi, my name is so-and-so. Of course, as soon as he said it, I knew who he was. And he said, I came by to tell you, I've seen a lot of people handle the unzip thing, but that was the most professional quality way I've ever seen anyone ever handle it. And he said, I'm coming back tomorrow night and bringing some others with me just because the way you handled the zipper thing.
So you had to do it again.
Praise God. I'm going to have to go around now and leave it unzipped and zip it up just to get more people to the meetings. But those
hilarious.
are always embarrassing. They're embarrassing times, I have to admit, on there. And then, oh gosh, I've had so many funny situations. Some of them would start out serious.
That's funny. What are you working on right now at this moment? What are you working on?
I'm working on how to say, Nazareth, I gotta go.
Yes, that's why I'm going to ask you. I'm closing the show in a minute. Talk to our audience right now.
Right now, what I'm doing, I'm creating portfolios for what pastors and parents are going to face the moment the COVID-19 virus is over.
Ooh.
For example, I'm doing these portfolios, about 25, 30 pages, also putting all the material on my website. Loneliness, depression, mental illness, and pornography. All these things have been in existence before the virus. Everybody's saying, well, look what the virus is causing, loneliness. No, it's not. It's just exasperating it and enhancing it. And I guarantee you, mark my word, it's already happening. But when the virus is over, every pastor better be prepared. Every parent. I'm trying to help, but pastors don't use research. 80% never use research, and their preaching shows it. That's why they're not as good as the Apostle Paul. But boy, did he use research when he went to Athens. He knew their philosophers, their statues, everything. And he knew how to address their worldview. But they better be ready to address loneliness. In the last 5 weeks, the loneliness chart has gone up 250%. They're going to have to address depression. They're going to have to address pornography. Viewing on the number 2 website in the world, the viewing of pornography in the last 7 weeks has gone up 750%.
Wow.
And you already got millions watching it. And what it is, when you have a lockdown all over the world, I mean, I've been on with Tibet, with all these weird countries. That's not a weird country, but all over the world, Inner Mongolia, Outer Mongolia, everything. Every single country's locked down. It's amazing. And what it does with the fear, the stress, the lack of the unknown is not causing these things. It's multiplying them. It's intensifying them. And when we come out of here, it breaks my heart to how many more hundreds of thousands of men and women are going to be not watching, addicted to pornography. It'll probably be 1 million new believers will be addicted over and above the millions that are addicted now. 50-some% of all your evangelical pastors are addicted. It'll probably jump up to 70% of pastors.
Evangelical pastors.
Oh, yes. Why do you think pastors don't address it? As James Dobson and Chuck Swindoll said, 1, fear of exposure. 2, shame. 3, ignorance. This is why pastors don't address it. But I'm trying to, you can go to my website, josh.org/porn, and get incredible material. I've done all the research for you. Or josh.org/loneliness is incredible. Or /depression or /mental illness. Incredible material there. But most pastors won't use it because they don't do their homework.
That's amazing. You have always been a resource for 50 years to pastors, to leaders, to all of us. So thank you so much for taking the time. If I were at a Mexican restaurant and I had to do a podcast for an hour, I couldn't. I'd be eating and eating again and eating again.
Well, I had a great torta before I called you.
Well, send my love to Dottie and to Sean and his wife and his kids and the rest of your boys and grandkids. You are an amazing man. You're a legend. And I know 200-300 years from now, you will still be impacting people. If Jesus
God created me, and then he said, I can do better. Then he created you.
Right. No, he didn't. No.
Hey, I gotta
but
go,
I'd love to work with you anytime. Call me.
Hey, if you get down to Dana Point and maybe you lost your money, you don't have anything to eat, no place to stay like Jesus, call me and I'll pray for you.
I'll call you in an hour.
God bless.
I love you. Thank you so much, Josh.